Hello.
Hello.
I'm here with Michael from Open-Xchange, who is a DAF expert. And could you please tell a bit more about yourself and your company?
Sure. My name is Michael Slusarz. I'm the product manager for Dovecot. I've actually been with Open-Xchange for 10 years, been the product manager for about 8 years. Open-Xchange, in general, we provide email and productivity solutions primarily. We also have Power DNS as one of our, but mainly, largely to the telco and hoster market and public sector governments. We're one of the largest email providers of the world. After the real big names, we are very into the idea of open standards and open source. That's a very important part of what we do.
And you're the maintainer of Dovecot right now.
I may not be personally, no, but the team is.
You as the company.
Yes, I work with the team, and yes, we are the ones that maintain the Dovecot code.
One of most popular open source email.
Yes, I will agree with that.
Email has been around like 50 years, and it's the same technology we still use, more or less. And am I correct, or did it change more?
The base idea of email and its killer feature really hasn't changed since the beginning. The idea of store and forward in terms of the actual mail delivery, federated, but it's not owned by any single individual company. So the idea of the big picture of email is correct. It's been around since the 60s or the 70s. The actual way we do it is constantly evolving behind the scenes. People that use email day to day probably aren't as
even aware of that.
Aren't aware of that. But the way you would send an email or read an email has actually changed very drastically since in 1970 to 2026. So
why is that?
Because things have changed. Obviously, the way people use computers have changed. The scale of the internet has changed. Security, authentication has become more important. I think we're gonna maybe talk about that a little bit more in the future here. That email, the very smart people that set up email at the beginning were smart enough to realize that you kind of build the framework of it, but allow it to evolve and grow over time. And so we're kind of in debt to what they were able to set up and provide us.
The protocols were designed in like 70s, 80s, and how's that protocols affect us right now? What I want to tell is this is the same standards like it was before, and shouldn't that change into something else in the future? Because like HTTP is evolving, and what about email protocols?
Well, we'll use SMTP as the example. SMTP is fairly simple. The idea being that I have a message, I need to give it to you, so I hand it off to you. Like that, at the very high level, that's very basic. So it doesn't require a super extensive standard to be able to do that. So a new standard isn't going to change that sort of paradigm. The things that have evolved since the 1980s, which we talked about previously, is things like authentication and security. And again, luckily, the way that these standards were developed is it did give the opportunity to extend on top of that standard. So frankly, it's easier. This is the example of a ship in motion is kind of hard to turn. A really large ship is really hard to turn. Email is used by a very large percentage of the world's population today. So it's not that easy to be able to go, you know what, we need to change the whole way we're doing it because this is a slightly better way of doing things. What had to be done in the compromise, especially in the big standards with a very established protocol, is no, we're going to incrementally add things, things like DMARC, things like DKIM. There's some more types of way that you can authentication-wise, OAuth. These are items that can be added and can be phased in, rather than requiring everybody to just stop using the system and use a new system. So that's a good example of the market or the people or the full federated email system making the decision that this is the better way of doing things.
And so we heard about new protocol, JMAP, which appeared on the market. What do you think about it? Isn't the future of the email?
Similar to the SMTP story, JMAP it has its advantages. For example, that it's using HTTP, and for many developers today, HTTP is a more native, a native way.
It's like API.
API-based standard, or more towards the way that people build APIs today. But it runs into the same problem: is there's so much momentum into the previous standard and for JMAP, you look at what JMAP does versus what IMAP does, and to an end user, the end user doesn't really see much of a difference. I mean, there's going to be some small technical differences and maybe improvements or not. That part's not really interesting. When you as a customer, as an end user, as a customer of email, look at email, there was a big jump between the previous version of what the email protocols was POP, to IMAP. IMAP gave you all sorts of things like a shared system. You had multiple connections. You had full text search built into the server. The messages stayed on the server. There was folder structures. So it actually changed the end user experience. JMAP is just a different way of doing mail. It doesn't really change the end user experience.
But doesn't it support like contact synchronization or calendars?
And I would agree with, that's the statement. That's where JMAP, at least for us in Dovecot Open-Xchange, is interesting. JMAP is not really an IMAP replacement, but JMAP could be an active sync replacement.
So it's an enhancement, not replacement.
I would say maybe it's a different way of doing IMAP. For active sync, which is patent protected or at least copyright protected and trademark protected with Microsoft.
Standard.
Active sync, there's a certain percentage of people that access, they need the calendars and the contacts and the email. And to me, that's a more interesting use case for JMAP, is that particular market. Not trying to change the way everybody accesses email, but that one particular portion of the market, that becomes a more interesting place where we could potentially leverage JMAP in the future.
And you mentioned authentication. Why still two-factor authentication isn't supported widely in email clients?
In any email protocol, again, behind the scenes, people, if you're not familiar with protocols, the various mail protocols can all support OAuth authentication. Like when you have an actual token, it's not that difficult to actually verify the token. The problem with a system such as OAuth is, how do you get that token in the first place? And the issue we've had up to this point in email is there really has been no standardized way for a client, when you are connecting to an email server, no matter which protocol you're using, how do you figure out how to get the OAuth client? These days, most people go through some sort of web interface or web login flow to get their token.
Authorize them.
Yes. That's the thing, and this is something that's being worked on by people in standardization today, is figuring out, once we have that way, that a client knows that if I go to this server, here's what I need to do, here's how long a token lasts, and once you get that token, and then you can do things like two-factor authentication in that authentication flow, and then a client can use tokens much more natively. And then we as users, as end users of email, the way that email as an app looks like, for example, on your phone, looks more like the way that every application that you use on your phone is. It looks more like an app that we're used to. Email was the original internet killer app, and so we're a little bit stuck in the history there. And we're trying to move that into something where it's a much more native 2020s
And
app.
What about more fluent, easier email configuration? Because right now you need to put your email address, password. You need to remember the server. So
yes, it's the only thing that most people on the internet ever have to know: port numbers and host names. And we'll call that, this is auto discovery. Authentication, using something like OAuth ties into auto discovery, because you need auto discovery to find an OAuth server. So if you're doing that, you might as well bring all the rest of it in too, is that the OAuth or the auto discovery can also automatically provide your client the information that it's this server and and use this SSL certificate or use these ports.
And you're pushing as company, as a maintainer, pushing it into the standards.
Yeah, yes, it's being standardized. IETF, which is the internet task force that does these standards, and there are actively both of these kind of tied together, but they're both being worked on presently.
Great.
So hopefully, standardization can be a little bit of a frustrating process because you have to get input from everybody, and it doesn't go as fast as you ever want it to. But the good news is we actually have reached a point where people understand this problem and want to work.
So how do you think email will evolve in the future? I still believe it's one of the basic features we use right now. We even noticed that people right now are more even focused on email SLA, how reliable it is, than like your website.
Yes. As somebody who's been in this industry for many years, email has been told, the meme is email's dead, right? That whole thing. And that was told to me 25 years ago. And then since that point, email has grown every single year. And there's still a significant portion of the internet that doesn't have email. Okay. Email is really used as the identifier, your internet identifier. And I think people inherently understand and appreciate that because it's not owned by any single company. Your email is serviced by one particular.
Yes.
But you can move it. You can move it over here. You don't have that choice with other messaging options.
Yeah.
And email remains the one place. It's the catch-all for anything that needs to be sent to you, right? There are channels now for more instant messaging and short messaging that are more efficient for those purposes.
But in example, if you are using like WhatsApp, you're stuck to one company. And to be honest, you don't know where your data is going, and you don't have control over that.
And it's not built to handle things like managing your attachments and all this other. And there's just a bunch of other stuff around email. Email is the general purpose messaging solution. And then yes, there's going to be in the future. If you're asking what's going to happen in the future, there may be other messaging that's better. Slack ended up being good for messaging within a single company. We actually have. Slack in between companies is not the greatest experience, but within a company, it probably is great. But again, there's going to be use cases, but that's fine. All of these various messaging systems, the market has shown can coexist, and end users are actually comfortable with that. End users know when Slack is better. End users know when it's better to send you an email, to send you a WhatsApp message, to send you an SMS message.
It's like very intuitive, to be honest. You intuitively choose which channel to use.
Yes, and so. That's why email has its place for a vast variety of internet applications, and so that's why we feel. And the last thing I'll say is email is sort of treated. It's almost like a utility. If your power goes out, you get all it's like your power is just expected to be on. Email is the same way. If your email goes down for 1 minute. You're just wondering and you're hitting refresh and you're like, why is this broken? Yes, email is just expected to be up because it's just like that is, it may not be the sexiest product anymore because it's just so ubiquitous. Everybody uses it and it just needs to be up. Okay. And so it's, that's why I'm still excited to be in the industry.
I can see you're excited,
because it's just an interesting, first of all, problem to solve, and then also the fact that people use it so much and love it so much that it's exciting to work on that kind of a system and a product.
Thank you for the great talk.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.